Hey guys, Greg Chaplin here, physical therapist and strength and conditioning specialist. And in this video, we're going to talk about the 5 essential mindset shifts that you must make to be able to get back into the gym and train pain-free. Now, who's this video for? This is for you if you're stuck in this holding pattern of trying to get back into the gym, then having flare-ups, then kind of getting kicked back into the rehab phase where you're trying to find that perfect exercise, or if you're really never able to get back into the gym because you're constantly searching for that perfect exercise or solution. So in these cases, usually at least part of what you're dealing with is pushing up against some mindset mistakes, and hopefully we're going to help you solve those here in this video so that you can get back to training in the gym pain-free. Okay, so without further ado, we're gonna go in no order here in particular. I got this written down in my handy dandy notebook. Can't believe I made that reference. And we're just gonna go through each at a time. There might be a little bit of redundancy here, but I've tried my best to separate these out. So mindset shift number 1 is that we need to restore trust and connection with the body rather than viewing the body as a problem to be solved. Now, the reason for this, we can get deep as we want here, but I'm going to try to keep this short, is that if you're really looking at the body as a problem, what you're essentially signaling to the nervous system is that there's some inherent threat in your body just as a matter of its existence. So as you go to move it, you're going to be very hyper vigilant to if you have a unpleasant sensation, and you're going to tend to then jump to an interpretation about what that means, and then that's going to derail you into a threat response that can ultimately result in pain or symptoms. So we need to reappraise this actual project and realize that really we have threat detection going on because we're disconnected from the body and we're viewing it as a problem. We actually need to go into a different plane of consciousness from which this problem was created, and we need to start living from this solution plane of consciousness. And in this, what our goal is not to look at the body as a machine that needs a mechanic in there to twist the whatever tool it is to put the screw in the right place. But what it actually is our body is this mechanism that receives input from the environment and then communicates that back to us. And we need to try to foster connection and trust with that so we can listen to those signals more accurately. And thus, we're going to reduce that threat detection and have a lower probability of pain or symptoms. So big picture here, focus on restoring trust and connection with the body. Stop looking at it like it's a problem. Okay, so now for number 2, we have a saying that I got from a client. This is a great one, which is don't feel your way to an action, act your way to a feeling. So this is especially salient for my perfectionists out there. I'm recovering as well, so if that's you, I feel you on that one. And what this is that a lot of us think, well, when the perfect time comes up, when I feel this way, or when this happens, or when I have this, then I'll be able to do this, and then I can be pain-free, right? That's kind of like if I have X, then I can do Y, and then I can be Z, right? And what we need to do is invert that. So we have to, again, start living from that solution plane of consciousness and to try to think, okay, if we're going to be pain-free, what is being pain-free like? We don't have to wait to have the perfect exercise so then we can do it and achieve some sort of arbitrary range of motion or position. What we actually have to do is think, okay, what does being pain-free mean? Let's start to act in accordance with that. We're going to talk about what that means in the next couple of mindset shifts. But then from that, we can start to take imperfect action over time. We can get some feedback and data about our program and then start to iterate and improve on that. So I just tripped over my words a little bit, but this was all about perfection. So screw it. Let's leave it in. Okay. So now number 3 here. This is that understanding movement only solves movement-related problems. I'll say that again. Movement only solves movement-related problems. And what this means is that the pain and symptoms that you might be experiencing when you're getting into the gym are not always caused by faulty movement. We might assume that. A lot of times we think that physical symptoms in the body means something is wrong with the body or something is wrong with the way we're moving. In some cases, this can be true. But in the case of a chronic pain or symptom that you might be having, you're going to look around the gym and see a lot of people moving in very similar ways to which you move, and you're going to find that they don't have pain or symptoms. So there's a little bit of a contradiction here. And if you just open your awareness to that and make note of that, you'll have some direct counter evidence, right? So it's really not far from you. You can see it all around you. A lot of people that you know move like complete shit and have no problems at all. So we need to stop blaming movement on everything. And the way I think about this is like, imagine we had 5 buckets out, right? And we had a movement bucket, and then we had these other lifestyle related buckets. Like we had sleep, stress management, emotional regulation, relationships, something like that, right? So if you're looking at your problem and you're putting all of your resources into filling up this bucket of movement, trying to find those perfect exercises, hyper focusing on that, but then you're neglecting all the rest of these buckets, chances are that if you had enough water to fill those 5 buckets, you just keep overflowing that one bucket and you wouldn't get any other water in any of the other buckets. To really be truly healthy, we want to fill all these buckets up. So just ask movement to solve movement related problems. Don't obsess about movement and then create a negative psychological state that then increases threat in the body and increases the likelihood of symptoms. I did this for years. Don't do it. I hope that makes sense. But we're just going to move on to the next one. So if you have any questions on this, just ask them down below. All right. So number 4 here, kind of playing off, I think, point number 2. So it's really about focusing on what you can do and then acknowledging, but not judging yourself for what you can't do, in parentheses, yet. So focus on what you can do, acknowledge what you can't do yet. And the thing that's big here is that a lot of times where we're putting our attention then impacts the actual actions that we're going to be able to take, as well as the quality of our attention and our mindset overall. So if we're always focused on what we can't do, and we're always anticipating the disappointment of being proven wrong that we can't do this thing, or always looking to where our deficits are, well, then we're going to stay in that energy of the problem, and we're going to stay in that high threat mode that is going to be more likely to produce pain and symptoms. That's also going to reduce the connection and trust that we have with the body. So what we want to be able to do is actually switch this and think about like, okay, if we laid out all the possible movements that somebody would do in a well-rounded gym program on a piece of paper, which of these can I do? Like, are there any on that paper that you could do right now with like a reasonable amount of load and have a reasonable suspicion that you wouldn't be in pain afterwards, or that you could tolerate a slight increase in discomfort? Is there anything like that? And I think like, even if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm lower level than that, and I'm just having trouble like walking and sitting, I think that you can actually use this same kind of approach and say, okay, well, maybe what I could do is I could take more frequent breaks. Okay, are you doing it? Are you doing it, right? You know, there are things that we think of that is actually pretty obvious, like self-evident things, and we just don't do them because we're kind of holding out thinking, well, maybe there's something that's actually way more perfect and targeted that I can do that'll make it so that I don't have to make these very obvious changes that if I did, I would probably feel better, okay? So whether it's the gym and getting back to training and just saying, okay, you know, maybe I can't do bilateral squats, but like split squats are totally fine, and maybe I should just do that as a bridge. You know, same thing can apply to just general increasing activities in your day-to-day life as well, right? If you can do 6,000 steps, could you do 6,500 steps in another week? Chances are probably yes. Okay, so now last point here, and that is going to be that everything is scalable, but not everything needs to be on the same scale. So I'll say that again. Everything is scalable, but not everything has to be on the same scale. And so what we mean by this is a lot of times that we think just because we're not doing all the high level activities we want, right? We're not bilateral squatting, bilateral deadlifting, doing bench press, hiking the tallest mountain, whatever that thing is for you. Just because we're not able to do that means that we have to limit ourselves in every other way possible. Now, like, this is actually the worst possible idea that you could do, because what you're basically doing is just setting yourself up for a situation in which you become really deconditioned. And then at that point, you're actually in a hole that's a lot harder to climb out of. So this kind of goes back to focusing on what you can do and not on what you can't do. Because when you focus on what you can't do, oftentimes you start to limit yourself from actually being able to do the things that you can do. So instead, why don't you lean into your strengths and then realize that your weaknesses can be brought up and scaled up through progression, instead of just saying, well, no, now I'm at the rehab level, so I can't do anything that's high level at all. So let's just go through an example of this so you can also understand what scaling up and scaling back might be. So if you think about a bilateral squat, right? Like a really advanced variation of that would be a highly loaded barbell back squat, right? That's a destination for a lot of people when they're going from a pain state to trying to get back into the gym training pain-free. Great goal, right? If we go one level removed from that, it could be a lighter back squat. And then we could scale that down even a little bit more to a slightly lighter front squat. Then we could go to even doing a squat where the barbell is in your elbows, called a Zercher squat. And we could even scale that back a little bit more to a goblet style squat where you're just holding a dumbbell or a kettlebell. We could then build in supports and constraints there, elevating the heels, providing a bench to reduce the depth, right? And then we could even bring that all the way to the ground to be a 90-90 position with the feet on the wall, just doing some breathing to get a little bit of awareness of that position in the first place, right? You could see how this all scales. So it's like, if I can't do that activity as the loaded back squat, maybe I scale that back just 1 or 2 steps, see how I do it that first, and then scale back even further if it's still a problem, right? We don't necessarily have to go all the way back to the most rehab-ish exercise. We just have to have a whole progression laid out from, let's say, the easiest, lightest, kindest, gentlest kind of a way to start to reconnect with the body, then up through all different levels of building resilience that ultimately ascend us towards our ultimate variation that we're going to hope to progress to and be able to do pain-free. All right, so that does it for this video. Hopefully this was helpful. If there's any questions at all, go ahead and comment them down below in the comments section. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit that notification bell so you'll know when I upload a new video. And if you're confused with all this stuff in terms of where to start and how to get going, I have a number of offerings that you can use to start to get back on this path to training pain-free. You can go down to the link in the description. If you really don't know where to start, I'd recommend you start with the Breathwork Breakthrough 7-Day Challenge. That's going to start to establish this sense of trust and connection with the body. From there, you can then ascend into more of the training side of it, more of the mindfulness side of it, or you can actually go into my brand new course. There's a wait list for that right now, where I'm going to teach you everything I know about restorative exercise. That's going to help you build those progressions from that rehab all the way back up into training. All right, guys, so that does it for this one. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, peace.